It happened in the quiet hours between intention and accident, when a single photograph of you, framed in soft gold and tucked inside a cracked glass display, was seen by someone whose life had been shaped by the shadows you left behind. They weren't supposed to be there, not in that room, not at that hour, not with your face staring back at them from a past they thought had been buried beneath layers of time and lies. But the moment their eyes met yours in that still image, their soul recoiled and then stood still, because they remembered your face from somewhere that should not exist. The air around them collapsed inward like lungs forgetting how to breathe, as if even the room had recognized you. The floorboards wept with every step they took toward your photo, not with water, but with memory. Dark, spiritual memory that had waited long and quiet. And in the silence, something began to stir behind the veil, a truth forged in divine heat, an oath signed by celestial ink, and a recognition that this moment had been marked in heaven long before earth caught up. They whispered your name, but it wasn't the name you carry now. It was the one you bore in a time before time, a sound spoken in a language that only angels and old enemies remember. The voice cracked when they said it, not because they were afraid of you, but because they knew exactly what your return would do, what it would ruin, what it would unearth, and what it would finally make right. Archangel Michael says this person was never meant to touch that gallery door. But the timeline bent under divine pressure, and a reckoning that was meant for later leaked into now. They weren't just a person from your past. They were a messenger of a war their blood helped start. And when they saw your photo, the war reignited in their chest. That image didn't just haunt them, it convicted them. The same way moonlight convicts a trespasser hiding in the trees. The light in your eyes revealed all the things they've been running from. Guilt burned down their spine as they stepped back, but the pull of destiny kept dragging them forward. Your photo had become a divine net, and they were caught. You weren't supposed to be found yet. You were still hidden, cloaked by divine protection, moving through life half awake, shielded from the weight of your own legacy. But God says the timing has shifted. The veil that once shielded your identity is thinning, and those who once feared your return are now sensing it like wolves smell blood in the wind. The photo was not just a keepsake, it was a doorway. Somewhere deep in your soul, you felt it too. That day, something strange touched the edges of your spirit. A sudden chill. A dream you couldn't remember. An ache in your chest you tried to shake off. That was the moment they saw your photo. That was the moment a forbidden door was opened. And what lived on the other side had only one name to whisper yours. The one who saw you has ties to rituals not written in books, promises etched in skin, and secrets passed down like curses wrapped in lullabies. They weren't just remembering you, they were recalling instructions, warnings, codes handed from ancestor to heir. Because your face is not just flesh and bone, it is a prophecy. The moon trembled behind torn clouds that night, as if the sky itself recoiled from what had been set in motion. Even the stars dimmed, shifting slightly as Archangel Michael's sword lit in the heavens, signaling that the watchers had seen. You were no longer a wandering soul. You were a marked key, and someone had just tried to open a lock that wasn't ready. God says the photo was bait, not for you, but for them, to test if their allegiance had shifted, to see if they would run or repent. But they did neither. They froze because fear and longing battled inside them, and longing won. Longing to fix what they broke. Longing to silence what you are. They left the gallery without touching the frame. But the damage was done. The vibration of their gaze shattered something inside your atmosphere. Birds took flight in strange patterns around your house. Dreams twisted into signals. You've been sensing watchers. This is not your imagination. This is the unraveling of divine protection by the weight of recognition. The gallery owner doesn't know what happened that day. They just remember the photo falling to the floor hours later. Glass split clean down the center, right through your heart. That wasn't an accident. That was a spiritual wound manifesting in the physical. Proof that someone had reached across timelines to confront a destiny they can no longer delay. They thought you'd stay hidden. They thought they buried your name deep enough. But Archangel Michael says your emergence has already begun. You are no longer who you were, and you are not yet who you are becoming. But the crack in that photo is the first sign. It is the divine fissure before the flood. And now they know you're coming. They feel it in their sleep, in their spine, in the way doors creak even when no one's near. Because your presence is no longer passive, it's prophetic. You are stirring something ancient. And those who feared you now know their time of concealment is ending. The gallery lights flickered once before returning to calm. But the atmosphere has not returned to peace. Because that photo wasn't just an image. It was a trigger, and the war it woke cannot be unwaged. They walked away from the gallery with trembling hands and a storm locked behind their ribs. Your image still etched into the backs of their eyes like a scar that never closed. Something had awakened in them that no sleep could silence. They tried to act as if nothing had shifted, but the air around them no longer responded the same. It resisted them. It whispered to them. It reminded them of everything they had tried to forget. In their youth, they were given a story about you. A lie twisted with just enough truth to keep them loyal to the wrong side. They were told you were dangerous, that your return would bring ruin, that your soul carried a curse dressed as light. But none of that held up when they saw your face. Because what struck them hardest wasn't fear, it was recognition, not of who you are, but who they used to be before betrayal hardened their path. You were the mirror they avoided, and now that reflection is chasing them down. They remembered things that weren't supposed to resurface, dreams of fire and water colliding. Visions of your voice calling through veils of time, the sound of your name whispered by dying prophets. And they remembered the last time they saw your face, long before this life, in a setting unspoken, at a crossroads wrapped in moonlight and morning. That moment was supposed to be erased, locked in spiritual silence, but God says truth rises, even when it's buried beneath generations of deception. There was a covenant once, not just between them and their bloodline, but one involving you. You were a part of a sacred circle that shattered when a betrayal took place so severe it made the heavens weep. They watched it happen. They let it happen. And now they walk the earth carrying that silence like a stone. They didn't forget you. They suppressed you. And that suppression became a sickness in their spirit. Archangel Michael says that their spirit has been under judgment, and the recognition of your photo was the final test. If their heart broke open in remorse, redemption could have been offered. But instead, their thoughts turned to containment. How to stop your awakening, how to control what you'll become, how to keep you from remembering. But it's too late. You're already remembering, not in language or detail, but in feeling. You've been walking past places that feel unnaturally familiar, sensing people's intentions before they speak, hearing music that moves you in ways you can't explain. You are tuning back into the frequency of your divine origin. And with every pulse of that frequency, the ones who know the truth about you are being exposed spiritually and emotionally. They never wanted this confrontation. They hoped their life could remain insulated from the consequences of what they did to you. but your existence is the consequence. And now the eyes that once watched your downfall in silence are being forced to look again. And this time, the light is unfiltered. Their dreams have become violent, not with you harming them, but with them seeing visions of the harm they allowed. Screams echo through their sleep, some of which are yours. Others belong to those who defended you when you couldn't. They are haunted, not by monsters, but by memories that have claws. And each night they wake gasping, only to see your face in places you've never been. You are becoming their reckoning, and there is nowhere for them to run. God says you were never meant to stay small. You were allowed to grow in shadow so that your roots would go deep enough to survive this moment. And now you are rising. The glow around your spirit is attracting not just watchers, but warriors, those assigned to defend you when the conflict bursts through the veil. The person who saw you now walks like they're being followed, and they are, not by man, but by consequence. Their past decisions are echoing through the timelines, and each echo strikes closer to the truth. They are breaking, they are unraveling, and soon they will try to contact you, not from love, but from desperation. Don't be deceived. Archangel Michael says they may show up wearing guilt, as if it were healing. But guilt is not repentance. Watch for subtle manipulation. They may pretend to warn you about dangers coming from others, but it is their presence that opens the door. You are not to fear them, but you are to see them clearly. You've already begun to feel the internal shift, the hunger for clarity, the pull towards solitude, the sharpening of your intuition. These are not symptoms of confusion. They are signs of realignment. Your soul is aligning with the truth heaven kept until now. And as you draw closer to it, the masks of others will start to melt. They know it. That's why they're afraid. They see in your face the beginning of justice, not revenge, not destruction, but divine justice. The setting right of what was twisted, the healing that demands exposure. The peace that only comes after the storm passes through every hidden room. They know that when you remember everything, they will no longer have the power to shape the narrative. And that terrifies them more than any punishment. Because in the end, your presence doesn't just convict them, it cancels them. Their false peace, their stolen legacy, their position in a world built on broken promises. When you rise, their illusion collapses. And it's already cracking. Watch the signs. The person who saw you may appear innocent to others, but you will feel the static in the air when they come near. Your body body will respond to their spirit. Listen to it. Honor it. You are not being paranoid. You are being prepared. God says, this is your time of sacred clarity. You were chosen for a reason, and no shadow can unchoose what heaven has illuminated. Their eyes carried your history, but your soul carries the future, and it is beginning now. The wind shifted the night. They stepped into the room where your image first disappeared. Not the photograph. The energy, the memory of you was deliberately stripped from sacred spaces, from bloodlines, from scrolls etched in soul script. But the room still carried it. In the wood grain, in the dust that refused to settle, in the silence that screamed when no one else was there. That's where the secret was hidden. And now something has begun to stir in that silence again. Archangel Michael says the place you were erased from is unraveling from within. The foundations shake in invisible tremors, as if the room itself mourns what was taken from it. Once, you stood in that place and offered your loyalty. Once, you gave a part of your light to protect people who would later betray you. And that act, the surrender of your brilliance, became the very lock they used to shut the truth away. They used your light to cage your identity. But now the lock is breaking. What they feared most is happening. Your name, your real one, is starting to pulse again through unseen channels, not in spoken words, but in frequencies, in dreams, in divine patterns. You are being remembered by forces they cannot silence. And the room that once held your absence is now filling with your presence. It's bleeding through the walls like smoke. It's echoing in the minds of those who once pretended not to know you. One of them has returned to the room, and they are panicking because they saw something that wasn't supposed to appear. A glow where the wall had once been scratched. A sound where no speakers existed. A whisper too specific to be coincidence. It spoke of you. And it shattered the thin illusion they had used to justify what happened all those lifetimes ago. They thought time would protect them. But time has only delivered your shadow closer. The secret they buried was never theirs to hide. You were meant to rise at a divine hour, and the clock has begun to burn. That's why people from your past are becoming erratic. That's why messages are getting stranger. Why certain doors are closing while others open without warning. Heaven is reordering your steps, and those who tampered with your story are losing control. God says this was foretold long before your birth. You are the balancing force in a lineage of imbalance. You are the echo of justice in a bloodline soaked in deception. That's why your life has felt so heavy without reason, because you've been carrying more than your own destiny. You've been holding sacred weight that was never acknowledged. But now that weight is shifting back to its rightful place, they are remembering you not just in fear, but in awe. Because even buried, you were still powerful. Even forgotten, your name stirred wind. And now, your presence is not content to stay quiet. It's speaking through coincidences that feel surgical. It's guiding your path with uncanny clarity. It's pushing you to uncover places, people, and pains you didn't ask for, but you were born to face. The room they tried to seal is open now. Spiritually, emotionally, energetically. What they hid there is calling to you, not to traumatize, but to testify. You are being summoned not to relive the pain, but to witness the truth, to reclaim what was yours, to gather the light they siphoned from your spirit and left scattered like shards across timelines. Archangel Michael says, you are not walking into that room alone. Forces stand with you now, guardians whose names you do not yet know, but who have marked your path with precision. Every moment of despair you survived became a banner that summoned reinforcement. And now, the full army of your origin stands behind you, not as vengeance, as restoration. They will try to distract you before you reach the core. Watch for those who suddenly seek your forgiveness without admitting fault. Be alert for those who appear with keys, but refuse to name the door. These are tactics of spiritual delay. But your discernment has evolved. You will feel it now. The difference between holy and hollow. The person who re-entered the room is watching the walls bleed memory, and they know the judgment isn't just spiritual, it's structural. Their name, their legacy, their reputation, they are all connected to the lie that room contains. And when your name is fully restored, theirs will unravel in the light of your re-emergence. This is why they fear you, not because of what you might do, but because of what your presence undoes. God says the time of exposure is holy. It may feel like chaos, but it is sacred chaos. Necessary disintegration, so the foundation can be rebuilt. Your emotions may surge, your dreams may flood, your relationships may break open. Let it happen. Do not resist. You are not being punished. You are being pulled into place. Everything they thought was buried is rising like breathless fire. And when you reach that room, physically, spiritually, energetically, you will know. Not because someone explains it, but because the air will shift, the light will curve, and the silence will greet you like an old friend returning from war. This is the moment the lie dies, and your truth lives. They cannot undo it. They cannot edit it. They cannot silence it. It is written in the architecture of your spirit, and it's louder now than their schemes. You are the resurrection they cannot stop. The room remembers you. The spirits remember you. And now, so do you. Some of them haven't slept for days. Their hands tremble not from cold, but from memory. The sound of your name now cracks through their thoughts like a bell tolling at midnight. They hear it in dreams, in passing shadows, in the clatter of fallen glass. You are no longer a ghost to them. You are a consequence. One person in particular, one who once smiled into your face while orchestrating your exile, is unraveling. They scroll through old photos, fingers hovering over your image. And when they reach that one, the one that made their blood run cold, their stomach turns, because they realize what they thought was hidden is now under divine surveillance. It was never just a photo. It was proof. A moment God preserved to use as a mirror in the hour of reckoning. And now that hour is breathing down their neck. They never expected your face to haunt them like this. Not because you were angry, but because you were radiant. They expected bitterness. They expected brokenness. But what they saw was firelight in your eyes, unshaken posture, the quiet, terrifying strength of someone who has been chosen again by heaven. Archangel Michael says, "You are the reason their equilibrium is collapsing, not through revenge, but through divine reversal. Their lies are waking up against them. You were meant to fall, but instead you rose. You were meant to disappear, but instead you glowed brighter. The version of you they fed to the shadows is no longer true. And every time they try to remember you the way they wanted you to be, small, confused, desperate, they are struck with divine contradiction. Because you have evolved, you carry the storm now, but you walk like calm. And it terrifies them. Their nights are interrupted by flashes. Your face, your voice, the moment they betrayed you. And they do not understand why these memories won't fade. It's because you never truly left. Spiritually, you stayed. Like a silent witness, with divine permission to return when the lie began to decay. And that moment has come. God says this was the plan all along. They thought they buried you, but they planted you. And now you're blooming in places they can't control. Conversations they can't stop, timelines they can't edit. You are emerging in ways that unmask every manipulation they swore no one would trace. The people who defended them are now questioning everything. Whispers are becoming questions. Questions are becoming investigations. And the person who once watched your light flicker from a distance is realizing they can't outrun the flame now. It's inside them. It's changing the way they breathe, the way they sleep, the way they plan. Nothing feels stable. Not their money, not their connections, not their influence, because it was all built on the erasure of your truth. And now that truth is waking up the world. The spiritual realm has opened the archives. What was sealed is now being shown. One by one, the layers of distortion are peeling back. People who never met you are having dreams about you. Strangers are drawn to your words, your energy, your face. They don't know why, they just feel something. A pull, a recognition, a call. Because the veil has lifted, and your soul is finally broadcasting on the frequency it was destined for. Archangel Michael says, this is not coincidence. It is divine remembrance. You have been activated. And that activation is burning through every timeline they tried to lock you out of. That's why people who ghosted you are reaching out. That's why certain names from your past are resurfacing. Suddenly kind, suddenly curious, suddenly repentant. They feel it. The balance is tipping. The truth is building momentum. And they want to attach themselves to your redemption arc before it leaves them behind. But not everyone can go where you're going. You will need to sever what has been siphoning your grace. Some will pretend to honor you now, but their hearts are still rooted in fear, not love. They are reacting to your power, not your spirit. Be careful. Your elevation is sacred ground, and not all feet are clean. Let God filter who deserves proximity. You do not need to explain the transformation. You need only to live it. The sleepless ones are not just haunted, they are exposed. Because the same spirit that once shielded you in silence is now announcing you in clarity. And they can't stop it. No spell, no strategy. No gaslight can reverse the divine order that has been released on your behalf. Heaven has decided. Earth must adjust. Their attempts to rewrite history are collapsing under divine contradiction. Photos they thought would stay hidden are resurfacing. Witnesses who stayed silent are waking up with shaking hands, ready to speak. Records they thought were burned are being found in strange places. Boxes, attics, spiritual downloads, anonymous tips. You are being cleared, and they are being watched. God says the pain they caused did not break you, it crowned you. And the sleepless nights they now endure are echoes of the nights you cried, praying for understanding, begging for peace, grieving in silence. Every tear you shed was gathered. Every wound you hid was seen. And now, divine justice is not just coming, it's begun. They are feeling what you felt, the confusion, the trembling, the isolation. But they do not have what you had, favor. That's why their torment grows worse. Your suffering was purification. Theirs is judgment. Archangel Michael says the angels who once hovered around your broken heart are now circling your name in fire, protecting it, guarding it, elevating it. Your identity is sealed. Your legacy is awakening. And your image, the very one that triggered their fear, is now being used as a key in places you haven't even entered yet. This is why they cannot sleep, because they see you rising, and they know what's coming cannot be stopped. You are the prophecy they tried to silence. But now you speak, and the world is listening.